So in the second chapter, we are turning our attention to the effort to play in unison. And this begins with a rhythmic exercise where we want to attempt to play along with a metronome, basically just a continuous clicking at regular intervals. And we want to feel what it feels like to play perfectly alongside those clicks. And this is really, I mean, the most basic and almost like recognizable part of music, because it's so basic, is just people playing together and playing the same thing together. So there's nothing complex here. It's the simplest thing we could do, all clapping together at the same beat or singing the same tone. So begin with the rhythmic exercise, and then we will move to this tonal exercise led by Jonathan.
Thanks. So if we're going to convert the ratio 1-to-1, unison, as if when you were just tapping that with the metronome, you can also practice that with another human. Get somebody to create a steady beat, and then find yourself in phase with them, in unison with them, and find when you start to go out of phase as well. And that's exactly what is the same idea is being transposed now at a much higher frequency into how do you create a unison pitch. And that means that any sound, you match that 1-to-1. So whatever that sound is, your reference sound, you would sing or play exactly that pitch. You find it, and then you'll really know when you settle into the perfect 1-to-1. And when it comes to singing with a drone, this is all of these exercises. It's recommended, or it's necessary to sing with a drone. That fundamental, unwavering fundamental that's going to generate the relationships that we are going to be singing through. In this case, it's called a unison. 1-to-1 is called a unison. And some of the most moving, especially symphonic passages, they are not due to harmonic or rhythmic complexity. Sometimes it's the fact that there are 80 or 90 people playing in unison and octaves, which we'll get to next time. But sometimes a violin section, even just like so many unison parts. It's quite overwhelming to the senses in a way.
And yeah, along that line, I mean, unison is technically still a harmonic relationship, and this is something kind of like musicologists debate, but the idea that there's like a pure pitch that's not, wobbling at all is just never the case. Even the overtones kind of make the pitch wobble. So whenever you have unison, you still have difference, even though ostensibly it's the same note. Everybody's voice, every instrument, every spatial, the fact that one sound's coming from here, one sound's coming from here, creates difference. And there is something harmonic there, even if it's maybe like the least amount of harmonic difference.
Beautiful. Well said. Yeah, very important. It is 1-to-1. It's not just a merge into one.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Exactly.
So in terms of how to start doing this, how to start experiencing a unison, I mean, I have my Esraj here with me, which I can pluck the string. If you have a guitar or any stringed instrument at home, it would just be starting with plucking a string and singing that note. Da, o, whatever syllable may be natural. And in terms of a keyboard, which Jack you can demonstrate in a little later, but you can very, very easily create a nice drone to be sung upon with a piano or a keyboard as well. Something else that needs to be introduced is that, as we said, that this is the confluence of coming from a North Indian classical background with also Western harmonic experience in Aladdin's life, but he's using here the North Indian classical solfege system. So most people have heard of do re mi fa sol la ti do as it's a solfege. It's what each of those syllables is describing is a tone degree. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And musicians will learn this as like a language of singing in. In India, there's a different solfege system. It's called sargam. And the syllables are sa, re, ga, ma, pa, tha, ni, sa. And so the exercises that we will be going through in these chapters will be using the Indian solfege system. I think the reason is that it's actually utilized very fundamentally in all Indian music training. So all instrumentalists will all be able to sing whatever they are playing, and they sing through this sargam system. Whereas in Western music, the solfege is more restricted to vocal technique and vocalists. It hasn't been kind of widely used amongst all the musicians that play in Western music genres, for instance. But we'll be going with the Indian side in this book. And so I'm going to now introduce the drone from North India. It's called a tanpura, and I have it here on an app that it's digitally recreating a 4-stringed drone instrument. I can actually recreate it on this Esraj, and I'm basically going to be plucking an octave and a fifth, and that's going to be creating the canvas of what you would sing on in North Indian music. Now, if I just start with the fundamental, I can add an octave, and if I add the fifth, and so that's actually an instrument that is played. The tanpura is an instrument that's played to accompany raga music, and it sounds like this. And so this sound will be coming throughout these videos to demonstrate some of the musical examples that we're going to confront. And as you can tell, this is a whole world in itself. Just sitting and contemplating the sound of this slow oscillation between the fundamental, the fifth, and the octave is creating such a rich canvas in which you can really feel the tonal gravity, the modal gravity. And so this first chapter is really getting us just to sing in that fundamental, that unison 1-to-1. And so Aladdin in the book has a couple good practices here. Don't sing with vibrato or less vibrato. In raga music, you don't really sing with much vibrato, if any at all, at times. Notes that are not too long, not too short, and you can go down his good best practices advice here. But really, you want to feel that fundamental tone. So this tone here, and you can say sa as in the first note of the Indian raga scale, and just find it however you will. I'm going to slowly bring up the pitch until I find it, and this is a good practice. You don't want to just start singing. You don't want to just start singing anywhere. You want to kind of feel your way into that sa, and as you get closer, as that curve coming into the sa, you're going to really start to feel that gravity of reaching that 1-to-1 place. So for instance, what I'm saying is you can start singing straight if you want to. Sa, sa. But in the Indian practice, you'd actually bend into it. Sa, sa. And having an instrument that's vibrating in the room that you are in is very helpful, because then you'll feel it a lot more deeply than a digital recreation. So I can try that again. just with this drone. Sa, and you're gonna find your voice. It's hard to stabilize any sound production on any instrument, especially the voice. And I am not a singer by profession, but it's a matter of trying to stabilize that sound. But you'll find that as your voice kind of wavers, just try to keep nice and relaxed, and just hone in. Let the sound, the unison, really govern you, rather than you try to control your voice to match the unison. You want to the phenomenology is relax the body, relax the mind, let the mind become very passive, in the sense of your body's going to tell you when this is in tune. Your mind and the calculations that your mind may do can also hinder this. But maybe we'll leave it at that.
Well, in that respect too, I wanted to mention that everybody's voice is kind of comfortable in a certain area, and no one is tone deaf, and everybody can actually sing in some kind of range. And so shifting, either there's multiple options for which drone to use in terms of sound clips within the module, but also if you download the app, you can actually switch the note indefinitely, basically, until you find one that you're comfortable singing with, because there's plenty of notes that both of us could sing that would be uncomfortable that we could find, and that's just based on everybody's own bodily shapes and face shapes and things like that. So it's important to shop around until you find the one that suits your voice. All right, moving along in chapter 3 now, we are doing a comparison of, you might say, the smallest difference, where we have something numerically different between what is being compared. Starting with a rhythm, we are going to be playing basically one hand at a constant rate, and then the other hand playing twice as fast as the first one. So within every interval, there's one extra note with the other hand. So you can try playing along with me. I'll do a slower one. And then speed it up again, and you can play along. And again, the two regular intervals are very close to one another, but slightly off. They match up every other interval, basically.
Yes, indeed. And so to hear this on the S-Raj, these open strings that I first showed, it's as simple as, if this is our fundamental, then I'm going to actually go the opposite way, because that's what I have here. But that lower octave is actually going to be half the
vibration
of the main one. Now, to go the other direction, I will sing that one, but it's literally that if you just think of waves, and that every 2 times that this saw here completes, every 2 waves, it's going to line up with 1, and so the nodes of these waves are really, that's really where you're getting this perfect relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So to put on the drone and to sing, so we have our unison, our sa, and if I'm going to sing double that, then I'm gonna glide until I find it. So I'll go sa 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 sa. It's quite a distance, especially done with the voice, which the voice has a good range, but it's again depending on where your initial saw is, you have to find where you can actually sing comfortably the higher saw.
Mm-hmm.
But in this key, we're singing in D, which matches with the Extraj. Is that that's where it lies for me. And in the sargam notation, we don't have a different name for this. Just in the same way that a middle C if is a high C, it's still a C. So the nature of the note, and that's again, it says something about this 2 to 1. It's not a fundamental difference. It is different and is in different range, different octave, we would say, but it's still called a C. In sargam, it's still called a sa, and the music really it revolves around developing the lower saw, and then the form will, like the raga will develop, the form will develop until you get to the high saw, which is the climax of the piece, and it's sort of like coming home to a different home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you would eventually come back down to your main saw. So it's kind of, that's how the music would utilize this octave theory, like musically speaking.
Perfect. Okay, we're moving into much more complex territory. Um, Moving from what is more or less a half or double relationship to a relationship of three, which Loudon is calling triple nature. And within this relationship of the next partial within the harmonic series and the next most complex, I guess you would say, rhythmic pattern, um, born from the same ratio, is actually more complex than just a three, because it's actually a 3 to 2, right? So for every two, three is also fitting into the same space. So it's not as if we're just moving to three. And he kind of makes a point about this, the 3/1 versus the 3/2. And what we're really looking at here is 3/2. So starting out with a rhythmic example of this, this one is much harder to play, and I find that the more you think about it, the harder it is to play. It's really a rhythm that you have to just feel. And it's basically doing 4 hits with one hand and 6 hits with the other hand, or 2 hits and 3 hits, whichever way you want to think about it. But it kind of cycles in a way that feels more like 4/6 than it does 2/3. But it's hard to. I'm trying to keep the one hand going here. Let's see. And it really does divide your brain in a way, and that's why he makes this kind of joke about the bicameral mind. But in a way, you're dividing yourself into 2 tasks. You're playing one rhythm and another rhythm over top of it, and it really feels as if there's 2 things going on, right? In the other case, when we were doing the 2 to 1, the 1 was almost redundant because it was contained within the 2, and here we have 2 distinct rhythms playing alongside of each other, and I think that actually has some qualitative manifestation within the sounds that we're going to hear, that are of the same ratio. allowed and shows us to drop the D string down to a C, which I'll do to start here on a guitar. And now, when we divide the string at the exact ratios that we're talking about here, 2 to 1, that would be exactly halfway. If I put my finger there, I get a note half of that value, which again would be an octave. Now, if I go to the ratio of 3 to 2, so this would be 3 and this would be 2, I'm going to get the perfect fifth, which is what we're looking for here in terms of sound. So, Jonathan, do you want to help us
Great.
try to sing this note?
Yes, indeed. And this 3 to 2 ratio, it's again a very singable note for anybody. It is possible. It's not as natural as a unison is very much natural. If a group of people start singing happy birthday, most people will jump right in without missing a beat. To sing in octaves takes a little bit more discipline or control to know that you are at a distance, but still, very much in line uh, with that octave. Now, with a perfect fifth, like you said, Jack, it brings a different type of complexity, and yet it is still a fundamental pillar of music. That relationship is still going to be built in, and because it's built into the harmonic series, it's built into to Western harmony, it's built into the drone. Like I showed you before, that the 1 and the 5 are the main drone notes. If I was to add more, or if the tradition was to have many more notes, or even one more note to the drone, things start to get very oversaturated. So there's something about the 1 and the 5 that are, again, it complexifies this sound world, yet not oversaturating it in a way. So it actually.
We should not say the 5 at this point, because then we're getting too into our musician
Oh,
notation headspace, because
the pa.
3, we're on 3 triple nature, right?
Triple nature. Oh, but it is, well, we have to say it's the fifth degree
It's the 5th degree, but
scale.
that's getting us into scale world and not into
Oh, I see.
number relationship. So I mean, I'm being
Good,
nitpicky
good. Okay,
only
okay.
because yeah, we're interested in triple nature in this.
Okay, so triple nature here set to the drone. We have our one, or our fundamental saw. Saw, saw. We found our octave. Saw, saw, saw. And now we're going to find that triple nature. Saw, pa, sa. And well, if we find where that lands in between our octave, even sa, sa, pa, somewhere close to the central axis here. And it has a very stable nature. And it lends itself to a good drone and a good pillar when you're developing melodies or harmonies. Sa, pa, sa, sa. Yes, and doing this with two different people singing these, you feel deeply in a very strong resonant relationship when you're doing this interval. The
Mhm,
triple nature is again every 3 cycles things are lining up perfectly,
mhm.
but but it's a beautiful feeling.
Mhm. Okay, now we are moving to what Aladdin calls Pentamerous or Pentamerous nature. It is the mathematical and qualitative aspects of five. And again, we are like as with three, we're not just with three, we're 3 to 2. Well, now we're working with 5 to 4. And as a rhythm, this becomes extremely complex. I can't, off the top of my head, think of any songs that use this. Um, it's very difficult to play, and we didn't practice. So I have a way of showing it to you from a YouTube video I just pulled up. And I will give that a go. So instead of playing it for you, I'll have this computer play it with its own little sticks here. It really feels disjointed. It feels off, and it's pretty incredible how well the sonic version, you might say, how good the tonal version of this really comes through, um, in comparison to the rhythmic version. So the tonal version of this is called the major third, but again, it's five nature, pentamerous nature that we're getting at this time, and that sounds basically like this. It's still very stable. It's not perhaps quite as stable and as homey as the third partial, the what is called the fifth. So now let's try singing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to, the note name for this one is Ga in the Indian system. And like you said, Jack, there is some stability. It is used a lot in Western music and in raga music as part of the home. So in the sense, there's a major chord that would be built off of the scale of degrees 1, 3, 5, and that includes, one the sa, the ga, and the pa, and they function as a home space. And in raga music, it's a note that is very commonly used as a note that you can rest on for a long period of time. And I've found that learning raga music in India, based on just intonation, which is what we're exploring, it's very, very close to just intonation, and some of the intervals are very much exactly just intonated intervals in raga music. But I found that the music really had a whole different life when I was sitting in front of my guru and he was singing these intervals just so purely. Like, he spent his whole life singing in one key, for instance, in D, and when he sang this interval specifically, it was unlike a feeling that I had even in Western music. It was very, very beautiful. We're gonna find that this note is between our sa and pa, and so as you get closer to either one, the ratios, the whole number ratios are going to get more and more complicated and, in a sense, abstract. So, like Jack, you said, we can't easily tap a 5/4, And and what music have you heard? Even in a cycle of five, it's not in the realm of popular forms of music so regularly. Although in Balkan music, they do regularly have wedding songs and folk songs that are in fives and sevens, and they dance. They grow up dancing in this way. So it's not that it's unnatural, maybe unnatural to our culture, but to other cultures, some of these odd numbers, like meaning not even numbers, but fives, sevens, or nines, which we're going to be getting into, are more taught and embedded in the culture. But in terms of this pitch, I think again it's something that when you're singing with another individual, and you can really feel where that third is locks in to the fundamental. It's such a beautiful feeling. Here it is with the drone. So we have our sa, we have a pa, so that's 1 5 scale degrees, or the octave sa sa pa sa. And now we're gonna be going between sa pa sa ga sa. So again, I would recommend you kind of sliding into that until you find that note. Listen deeply to it, to the nature of it on a keyboard or on what Jack had played, and then to kind of contemplate it, and then slide from your sa, and if you go too far, you're gonna know. I'm going actually into the next note, but you can really have to circle around it a little bit to find it. Sa. And when your voice kind of stabilizes and you really can walk in and relax into it, it feels you are there.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful feeling. So enjoy this one.
Maybe I should do quick the harmonic on the guitar for it.
Yeah. I was thinking that too. Yeah, totally.
Cool. So quickly, just to show again how this manifests within the harmonic series of overtones, we started with the note by itself, then we did the octave, and then we did the fifth, which is technically the three nature, and then we get back to another octave. And then we move to this pentamerous nature of the major third. Can you hear that well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's the two harmonics played together. So we're moving along now, and now that we have established these relationships within sound, we are going to stick with just those relationships, but basically repeat the operation by which we came to those, starting at different positions within a tonal space. So, as we've seen, we started with our fundamental tone, the sa, and its octave. And then we added the pa, which was triple, and then the ga, which is the 5 ratio to it, but called the third. So we've established this tonality, and the next thing we can do is take this ratio of 3-2 and double it by starting from the second note and going up again the same interval. And that gets us the note re.
Nice. Yes, indeed. And so on the S-Raj here, the same progression can apply. And I'm going to be just using the tuning harp here to bring this into pitch. But this, how I can generate the re from the main, that perfect fifth tuning. So we've got, so there's our saw. And then I'll generate a perfect fifth. And you'll see. So now I have that 3-2, tuned. And if I want to go down the octave, and then tune that one. Now, the way that's going to sound on this, if we're going to generate our re based on a perfect fifth from the fifth, so that's 2/5 up from our saw, is 1, and then, and I can play that as, and I tune that according to a perfect fifth. The same feeling of saw to pa. Now our pa is going to be generating that relationship to the re. Now, if I'm going to now transpose that down an octave, I'll tune that. So the map is that I'm going up a fifth from sa to pa, pa to re. And I can choose to transpose down an octave. And I've actually now generated the tone that is next to our saw. And in terms of scale degrees, then this is going to be our second scale degree. So sa, re, ga. At this point we have 5 notes now to work with. We have, and I'll sing those. So we have sa, and then we've done the octave, sa, and the fifth, pa, ga, sa, ga. And now we've added our re, sa, re, ga, pa, ga, re, sa. And we have a simple 4 notes there to work with in terms of singing this is in just intonation based on the tunings. And now to get the ratios, they're all going to be whole numbers, but a fifth from sa, and then we're tuning up another fifth to re, and then that's going to now give us, what's that relationship to sa? What is the ratio that note is in? And we're gonna learn that it's a lot more complicated than anywhere we have gotten before, and it is 9/8. Mm-hmm. And that again, yes.
I was gonna say, well, maybe you were about to get to this, but while Aladdin is taking us in a tuning developed by repeating that same operation of finding a fifth, this interval is actually also present within the harmonic series as well. It's just skipped over a bunch further than we have gotten before. So basically when you do the octave, then the fifth, then back to the octave again. Oh, sorry. Then you get your just major third, and then you get another fifth, and then you get what's called the septimal minor seventh. So from that, and then from there we're back to our starting note again, another octave, and the next note is the 9/8, which is the ninth partial. So it is contained within the harmonic series as well.
Beautiful.
Yes. Okay, and we're going to continue through this chapter and get a couple more tones here. Okay, so we've now I'm going to go back to the pentamerous nature to get a couple more tones based on this as well. So we've got our saw and a 5/1 here, and when I'm tuning the harp and I want to tune the ga, this is the major third or the third degree of the scale, but it's actually pentamerous nature. And this is going to be our reference for the next note that's coming up, and that's the major seventh. And just in the same way that I'm tuning, from the sa to the ga here, I'm going to transpose that exact relationship from the pa. Here's our pa, and in the same way that the pa generated our perfect fifth above, which is the re we just discovered, now we're going to actually tune a major third from the pa to what's called the ni. And that's, again, it's a major third tuning. And if you stack these, sa, ga, then you have a fundamental chord. There's 4 notes here that could work as a chord. But the idea is, and it's a little bit more challenging, but you start with you have to move up to the pa, really feel pa as your home, and then tune that natural seventh to the pa. So we have got to a place in the chapter which there's actually a scale, and I'm going to sing that scale, and it includes all these notes, and I will then demonstrate the figure 6.11. I'll sing that, and then I'll demonstrate a little bit on the esraj, this how that may turn into a raga expression. But really, it's based all on these tuning in fifths and thirds. So, sing this in the syllables here provided, the sargam syllables. And maybe I'll just do an additive so we can follow the path so far. Sa, sa, pa, ga, re, ni would be the 7th degree. Getting high in the range, but if I was to transpose that down an octave, which is always possible and a good thing to do for practice, sa, sa, ni, ni, ni. sa, sa. Octaves are always 2 to 1, so that place is going to come right down. And this scale here, figure 6.10, or example 6.10, sa, re, ga, pa, ni, sa, sa, ni, pa, ga, re, sa. And we have a pentatonic scale. A pentatonic meaning there's 5 notes in it. So in scale degrees, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. And you can get a lot out of 5 notes in music. I remember sitting in India doing not this 5-note scale, but a different 5-note scale, and we went on for hours and hours, and I never seemed to get bored or tired of it. It never seemed to get repetitive. And I asked my guru about how does the raga work in that way, and he said the potency of the raga is infinite. And it's maybe a mystical way of saying that once you can relate to these notes so deeply and you become these notes, then you can endlessly find new variations, new ways of expressing them, and you can tread similar territory but differently and continually build a story that's kind of spiraling in and out. And this raga is actually a very beautiful one, and we have an example here in 611, and it's written in the key of C with the sargam notation below it. I'm singing in D because the esraj is in D, so if you are at a piano, then the starting note is a D actually. But anyway, so here is what this would sound like, fairly straight, not too much raga expression, but just so you can hear these tones and how they can kind of build musical phrases in a way. Sa, ni, pa, ni, re, sa. Sa, ni, re, ga, re, ga. Pa, ni, re, sa. Ga, pa, ga. Pa, ni, sa, ni, pa, ga, re, sa. So I was just trying to sing mostly straight, but I added a little bit of inflection because just straight notes becomes a little bit clinical. But that's the way to start, is to start by singing these notes as purely and as simply as you can before you start to add expressive contours to them. And now I can play very shortly, short improvisation, or like a alap in this raga on esraj. Is the volume okay here? The esraj? Just try. Yeah?
You could turn the drone up a bit, actually.
Okay. So on the instrument, we've got the 5 tones, and I'm playing the drone strings, 1 and 5.
So the last thing we're looking at in these lessons is the map of affects, which we are given in the 8th chapter. And now this is moving forward a couple of steps that we haven't covered, but we wanted to say a little bit about it here. That essentially what we've done so far is to construct a tonal system using the same sort of emotional energy, basically. And that emotional energy is what comes from the 2 intervals we've been using. Oops, sorry. The what is called the 5th, but the 3-2, and the 3rd, which is 5-4, that gives this very majory sounding tonality. Now, Aladdin is moving us a step further by doing what is called inversions. An inversion takes the same interval moving up and it does it downward instead. And this gets what is often called the undertonal series, or the eutonal, as opposed to the otonal. So instead of moving up in these familiar ratios to us now, we can move down in those same ratios. And we can already hear that what we're getting is a much darker, a much more plaintive, a much more somber sound in some ways. And this is the basis of a minor chord here. But we can see these kind of polarities within the sound itself, within the quality of the sound, between where we're being tugged in very different directions. And if I play, you can feel how in one we're tugged emotionally here, and then tension and passion and his direct his passion, his explanation of that is passion, and then what he considers energy of the moon. And this resonates with certain ideas we've talked about already, with sort of the Apollonian versus the Dionysian, and there's definitely something like that going on here. Jonathan, did you want to add anything, or?
Yeah, and another type of language that Aladdin uses is talking about that ascending up in fifths as overtonal. So the sa as the generator here, and if you're tuning up from sa to pa to re, for instance, re to da, if you continue going, that's all is generating is generating an overtonal kind of spectrum of affect.
Hmm.
And it's the same with tuning, like you had said, from the sa up a third to the ga, or from the pa up to ni, the notes that we were using. And all the notes that we've used so far in these demonstrations have been on the overtonal side. And like the reciprocal, he calls the opposite the reciprocal. So it's like then you're going to be, like you're saying, inverting these intervals, and they're going to be going down away from sa in a way. Now, even though they, like he has a map of effects, talks about the moon energy or passion, you know, more inward looking, in a way, like he says, it's the note name is ma, and it says like it's the mother, and whereas the pa, he says, is like the father, like very different types of roles and relationalities and even powers in a way. But something to be introspected and to be experimented with. There's no absolute symbology that can contain this either. It's a place that he's starting with us. But you can compose modes of all overtonal notes, like the mode that we were using, or you can compose modes of music that are all reciprocal, and everything in between. And that's where you have modes that are combining both types of energies, and those are very interesting modes as well. A lot of tension and release in different ways. But yeah, this is the canvas of just intonation coming out into modes, and it's very fun.
Perfect.